South Africa's third quarter unemployment rate at 29.9%, an 11-year high. African Export-Import Bank delays IPO over unfavorable markets. Mining giant Sibanye considers moving to New York from South Africa. Thank you for joining us and welcome to Business Incorporated. I'm Chimeze Obi Iwago. Starting off in South Africa, as unemployment rate remains at its highest level in more than a decade. The country's unemployment rate stood at 29.1% in the third quarter versus 29% in the previous quarter. Statistics South Africa's quarterly labor force survey shows there were 6.7 million people without jobs in the 3 months to September 30, unchanged from the prior quarter. It was the highest jobless rate since the survey started in 2008. The expanded definition of unemployment, which includes people who have stopped looking for work, was 38.5%, unchanged from the previous quarter. And responding to that unimpressive jobless data, the JSE index in South Africa faltered at intraday, down 0.25%. Here in Nigeria, the stock index was down 0.06%, not sustaining the gains recorded on Monday. However, in Egypt, the index was up 1.05%, while the Nairobi stock index closed positive at 0.76% on Monday. In the Middle East, the markets were all in red at intraday. Saudi Arabia's stock market fell sharply, extending losses for the third straight session, with banking shares falling the most. The index dropped a further 1.32%, with RG Bank losing 2.2% and Bank Saudi Fransi decreasing 2.3%. Qatar's index dropped marginally. Extending losses from previous session, Dubai's main share index was 1.35% down as gains in financial shares were offset by losses in real estate. In Abu Dhabi, the index came down 1.16%. And in Asia, major markets there were mixed as investors monitored further developments on the U.S.-China trade front, with the two economic powerhouses working towards a deal. In Japan, the Nikkei 225 rose 0.47% to close at 22,974.13, while the Topix gained 0.86% to finish its trading day at 1,662.68. South Korea's Kospi closed slightly lower at 2,092.69. The S&P ASX 200 in Australia rose fractionally to end its trading day at 6,745 points. The Hang Seng Index in Hong Kong reversed earlier gains as it declined 0.39%, with Hong Kong listed shares of HSBC dropping 1.24%. Mainland Chinese stocks fell on the day. The Shanghai Composite shared 0.87%, and the Shenzhen Component was 0.57% lower. The Shenzhen Composite also declined 0.938 to approximately 1,642.68 points. And in the U.S., stock index futures were lower this morning amid the busiest week for earnings. At around 4:54 a.m. Eastern Time, Dow futures fell 40 points, indicating a negative open of more than 23 points. Futures on the S&P and Nasdaq were mixed. Corporate earnings remain the top market focus today. BP, MasterCard, Merck, Pfizer, and Kellogg's are due to report before the bell, while Mondelez International, Chubb, and Amgen are set to report after the bell. At the same time, traders are also paying attention to trade talks between the U.S. and China. On the data front, pending home sales, consumer confidence, and housing vacancies will be released at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. All right, let's take a quick look at what's happening on the African continent, with the Afrexim Export-Import Bank putting its plans to float on hold, delivering a fresh blow to London's ailing initial public offering market. Now, despite confirming just days after days that it was pressing ahead with plans to list in London, the African Trade Finance Group has now put its IPO on ice, citing unfavorable market conditions. The group was hoping to raise $250 million. Afrexim Bank provides trade finance for large infrastructure projects across the continent. Founded in 1993 by a group of African governments and investors, Afrexim Bank was created to facilitate, promote and expand intra and extra-African trade. It says it has provided over $69 billion of trade financing across 51 countries since its creation. The news is a fresh sign of troubles in London's IPO market, which has suffered a sharp slowdown in activity over the last year, amid apparent caution from investors in the wake of Brexit uncertainty. While talking about the Brexit issues, of course, in the UK, Prime Minister Boris Johnson lost its third bid to force a general election on December 12th, but he will attempt to get his bill approved once again in coming days. Well, Juliana will give us some update from the street of London. Hello, Juliana. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
All right, so walk us through the UK stocks and currencies as the news of Brexit extension into January 2020 is being digested on market streets.
Well, today, Chimaze, it's not just an extension. We have heard a couple of hours ago, the Labour leader, Jeremy Corbyn, has confirmed that he will be backing tonight in the House of Commons a snap general election. So it's almost a guarantee that Britain will be heading to the polls before Christmas. Let's have a look at how intraday markets are taking that information. The FTSE All-Share is down 0.44%. The FTSE 100 is down 0.48%. And the FTSE 250 at intraday is down 0.42%. It's not likely to close at that. In currencies, the British pound down on the moment on the US dollar by 0.03%, up on the euro by 0.09%, and down on the Japanese yen by 0.09%.
Now, any idea where the Royal Mint is regarding the commemorative Brexit coin, which was to be launched on Thursday, the 31st?
Well, it's a bit of a comical story, really. Yes, now that Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister's 31st of October do-or-die Brexit is dead, Royal Mint, they confirmed that they would be, celebrating the Brexit departure with a 50p coin. Of course, that's not happening, so the Treasury said that they'll be melting down this coin. There is no cost to the British taxpayer, and Royal Mint did say that when indeed Britain do depart from the European Union, they'll be printing another 50p coin.
All right, and British billionaire Richard Branson has launched its Virgin Galactica Holdings. That's the first space tourism business on the New York Stock Exchange. Is this some major headline news on the British media since yesterday?
Well, to be honest, Chimaze, it wasn't. It didn't manage to break through the Brexit headlines. And that's partly because Boris Johnson, yes, he is a British billionaire, but he doesn't spend almost any time in Britain. And of course, it was launched on the New York Stock Exchange, but it was a big global story because it's really fascinating. As you said, this is the first time an IPO has been launched for a space company. And I think a lot of people are interested to see just if, the novelty does wear off. I think their shares yesterday closed down 0.3%, but, trading at about $12 a share is very good. It is going to be very, very expensive. I think commercial flights will start taking place mid-2020. And although there is a backlog of about 600 customers, each flight, each ticket is going to cost $250,000. So not for the everyday person. And it will be about 6 passengers per flight. So it's interesting to see whether or not technical failures will stop flights being taken off, or whether indeed, they just have to stop floating altogether. But good day yesterday for the British billionaire Richard Branson.
Well, we'll see how that plays out eventually. Thank you, Juliana.